You've been doing any type of personal development work, you likely have had an experience with a technique or a modality or some type of process that worked sometimes, but it never really worked 100% of the time. I'm going to talk a little bit about why that is, and more importantly, what you're more interested in is how do I get it to be more effective so that when I'm doing my inner work and I'm processing out old limiting beliefs and I'm releasing and letting go of old habits and patterns, that it's actually making a difference. It's actually creating transformation within me. So, as we get into this, I want you to use your own experiences as a frame of reference. This is ironic because what we're actually talking about here is the important distinction between keeping things at an intellectual level versus getting into the subconscious feeling center of ourself, which is where we actually create the shifts. So I've obviously been working with clients for a very long time. I personally started using different techniques and modalities to accelerate my healing and transformation back in 2005. And I started doing it professionally with clients in 2006. So that's almost 20 years of experience working with other people. I've seen this phenomenon so many times that I've largely been able to pick out, right, the different times when I'm working with someone and they are not going to have a shift because they are stuck in their head. They're stuck at the intellectual level where shifts do not occur, versus when I'm able to get them to go into that subconscious state. That's when we can create really significant shifts. So, while we go through this, I'm asking you to make sure that you are bringing yourself into the right state so that you can have more than an intellectual understanding of what I'm sharing with you here. If you can get this at that deeper level, now you can actually implement that in your different processes and practices, whether it is some type of releasing work, it is something like NLP or hypnosis or meditation. It could be any number of different processes or techniques, or even if you are in some type of service-based business where you yourself are the coach and you're working with other people, this is going to help you to help your clients. So let's talk about what is this important distinction that is the difference between a modality working effectively versus ineffectively. The difference between having a real shift versus the issue perpetuates, it continues. Nothing actually changed. Now, I'm not going to go deep into the subconscious resistance that we can sometimes experience. There are other trainings I do on this. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go deep into that. I will just say real briefly that the subconscious mind can be tricky at times. And things that we have a strong fear-based association with, the subconscious mind will oftentimes give us smoke screens and give us a sort of it'll give us some BS, basically, right? It knows exactly what is our tripping point. It'll bring that to the surface. We say, oh, there's that problem again that I keep trying to figure out, I keep trying to work through. And so then you user process on that some more, and you're just never getting anywhere because that is the smoke screen. That is the subconscious mind saying, there's a deeper root cause here. We're not going to go there. And we know exactly how to keep you from going there. This works perfectly. We use it on you all the time. And every time you just get stuck there and you don't go any deeper. Now, what I'm going to go through with you may actually help you to bypass that. But the real message here is about feeling yourself into the correct state so that you're able to create that shift within yourself, whatever modality you're using, whether it's some type of coaching protocol or it's NLP or it's a releasing process, it is EFT, whatever it is. We need you to be able to feel when you're in the correct state versus when you're still at that superficial level. Okay. Superficial level. Let's talk a little bit about that. Just want to clarify this. So, we've all had conversations with other people. You're telling them something, and you can sense, you can tell they're listening, but they're not really listening, if you know what I mean. They could even recite back to you, repeat back to you what you just said. But it's at such a superficial level that in 5 minutes, they won't even remember because they didn't integrate it. They didn't process it. It just stayed at that level. That's how oftentimes we are going about doing some of our different inner work processes. We don't want to feel the discomfort. And so we play games with ourselves and we stay on that surface level. But that's exactly why you're not getting to the shift point. There is a huge difference between operating at that surface, superficial level versus when you're really present in the experience. What happens is when you're engaged, when you're really being deeply self-honest, incredibly self-aware, you are now operating at more of the subconscious level. And when I say more of the subconscious level, I'm saying that for a very specific reason. If you're not in a altered state of consciousness, you may still be in a beta brainwave frequency, probably a lower, slower beta brainwave, or right on the verge of a high alpha. Now, to really go deep, deep, deep into the subconscious, that's when we go into that nice, slow alpha brainwave state, or even get into theta. And that is where we're really now tapped into the subconscious. But here's something that I want you to remember. When you are doing whatever your process is, whether it is, say you're doing some EFT tapping, you have a specific challenge, you are committed to working through it, you know that the technique works sometimes really well, and you know that other times it just doesn't seem to get the job done. As you are sitting down with yourself, and I'm choosing those words strategically, okay? Meaning present. You're fully and completely present in the experience. Now, what I want you to notice is you can actually feel that you are in a different state. You feel the difference between when you are listening to something and you hear it, and maybe you're multitasking, and therefore you're not fully present, and therefore not actually really integrating that in a meaningful way, versus when you are fully tuned in, that heightened state of learning. So, that tuned in presence feels, and I'm bringing this point back around again because I really want you again to connect the dots for yourself, your own experiences. The times when you have been doing your protocol, your technique, whatever it is, and you're just going through the motions, right? So if you're familiar with EFT, you can see that I'm tapping through the different points. If you're disconnected, if you're at that surface level, you could tap all day long and you'll feel a sense of completion because you're like, okay, I'm over this, I'm bored, but you didn't actually shift. Versus when you're fully present and so self-honest, self-aware. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What are the sensations that are coming up for me? That basically means I'm in my body right now. And your body essentially is it's a part of your subconscious mind. Okay. So where is the mind? Well, some people say it's in the brain. Well, we know that the brain is like the master computer, but really we also know that it's connected to the whole body. But is the mind actually just in the brain? Well, science actually says no. The subconscious mind, we store memories, we store energy all over our body. You'll hear terms like cellular memory, right? So the subconscious mind is not just in the brain, it's in your whole body. And even if it were solely in your brain, you still would have to be engaged in the process. But now, what I want you to recognize is this subtle shift of bringing yourself so fully into your state of beingness, being mindful to pull yourself out of the mental chaos. This, in and of itself, is a critical component to getting real, tangible results from whatever your process or practice is. So it makes a lot of sense, right? If you're in a coaching session, and let's say you're on the receiving end, your coach is sharing some of the most profound information with you. And if you're just operating on that surface level, that superficial level, you're not getting it. It's not connecting any dots. You're not having any aha moments. But those times where you're so engaged, you feel different. That's when you have the shifts. So in your releasing processes, what I want you to be very mindful of is, am I defaulting to that surface level? And if so, there's a good chance that my subconscious mind is playing games with me. I'm going to be intentional and choose to really go through this process, to be present with it. That intentionality will help you to bring yourself into that presence. If you watch any of my other trainings, especially as I'm teaching EFT, I always say self-honesty is the key. Well, how can you get to self-honesty if you're at that surface level? You could trick yourself into saying I'm being self-honest, but really, if you're at the surface level, you're just regurgitating the same old shit that you keep telling yourself over and over and over and over again. Okay. And when we're in the mind, when we're in that state of just mental crap, we're not actually in a true releasing state. We are not in the right state of mind, the right state of consciousness for really, truly creating a transformational shift. So if you're a coach and you're working with someone, be aware, notice when they're playing that game with themselves and they're sort of drifting, right? One of the frequent things that I'll see with only certain clients of mine is they get distracted. Phone calls are coming in. It's like, really? $500 an hour for a session and you're taking a phone call. Are you trying to self-sabotage here? Well, in many cases, yes. But as the loving coach who picks up on that, bam, we're bringing them back. Holding the space for your client to make sure that they come back into that state is essential for them to have a transformational shift. So you have to play coach with yourself. Regardless of what type of process you're using, if you are not in that state of presence, if you are not tuned into the feeling, which is deeply subconscious, okay? If you can tune into the feeling when it doesn't just feel like this surface level stuff, right? There's a difference between our awareness of feeling uncomfortable feelings at that superficial surface level versus really being in our body and accepting and acknowledging this hurts. I don't like the way I feel about myself. I don't like who I am in this respect. But that type of self-honesty and self-presence allows you to tap in to whatever that key core issue, limiting belief, old pain, old trauma stuff is so that you can effectively process it out. I'm going to wrap up this video here. I hope that this has been helpful. The takeaway here is really just be so aware, more aware than ever before. Call yourself out. If you're drifting, if you're at that surface level, you've got to call yourself out and you've got to be intentional about really being grounded in this moment. And what I mean by grounded is you don't have to do a lot of meditation to ground yourself. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's just as simple as the intentionality, being so deeply intentional with yourself to say, cut the BS. If you really honestly want to shift this, come inside. That's where this transformation needs to occur. And then when you do whatever your process is, you're going to notice it is so much more effective. So until next time, I will see you in another video.